We're going to take a look at a brush pack for Krita, and this is put out by David Revoy. It's called the Krita Brushes 2023 bundle, right? And so if you go to his website, davidrevoy.com, download that thing. These can be a little bit difficult to install with Krita, but basically you go to your hard drive, see, and then you have to expose your hidden files somewhere in the properties. Might be different on Windows 11, but you can go to your users, your username, app data is a hidden folder, roaming, and then you go to Krita, right? So the Krita folder, this is where you place the bundle file. It's really simple. So when you download it, you extract it, you put the bundle file in this folder, and that's it. And you'll have it install restart Krita. And what these things look like is up here, you'll see there's the 23.01 brush pack. And so we have all kinds of different brushes in here. Some of these are built up, I think, off of some of his older ones, so you don't have to worry too much about getting the older ones, but you can grab them if you want to. And let's go to a new window here. Do just the design template. We'll play around with these things real quick. And so something that's always been missing in Krita for me anyways is dry brushing. When you're doing like acrylic paintings, something I do a lot of is dry brushing. And so these little green ones I think are all the dry brush mimicking type brushes here. So you'll see that they're actually pretty good. They're not really bad. Let's go to 100% and reset that so we can see what's going on here. And you can see, yeah, it's very much mimicking like a dry brush kind of technique. It's actually quite good. So chalk brush sort of does something like this, right? But it's very similar to those. They're just kind of nicely tweaked, I would say. And it's very similar to how I would set up brushes. A lot of fun to use these things. So we'll go through these ones real quick. Let's try a little bit of a different color here. See what kind of textures and patterns you're going to get out of it. But the big thing is that you don't have to worry about setting up and configuring brushes really. You can download brush packs for Krita. This just happens to be one I found recently that I like a lot. It has like an eraser for it. That's pressure sensitive opacity, soft round eraser. Soft round. The airbrush here is actually been tweaked a little bit. And it's a little bit nicer. You see, it adds a little bit of maybe like a little tiny bit of noise to it. And so that's good. Got that one. Got your typical opacity brush, digital set, right? This one's actually quite nice as well. Very typical kind of setups here. A lot of this stuff you'll already find in Photoshop by default, but for Krita it wasn't necessarily a thing, right? Even Krita has similar, but basically the same things almost. But you'll have to download it and try it. You'll see what I'm talking about. They're nice. They feel right. Um, like this one has like that. That just has a good look to it, in my opinion. I like that one a lot. I'm gonna add that to my favorites by right-clicking it. Add it to my favorites there. This one's not bad either. I'm a little bit more sketchy. And we're getting back into the green ones. We already did those. Let's go through it and go to the next section. See how these lay out. Put some color on them. This one is a mixer brush, or a blender, should I say. Krita doesn't have necessarily mixers per se. I think they kind of do. Like if we use like pure yellow and we mix blue into this, it should turn, no, it doesn't turn green. So real paint turns green, obviously. This doesn't do that exactly. It almost looks like it does, but that's an optical illusion with your eyes. So gotta be careful with those ones usually. Oh, these are blenders. So the blenders are actually, um, this one is okay. I don't really care for it, but I love this one here. It's just a textured blender. I've actually made a textured blender very similar. Um, it's just, I find them to be quite useful. This one as well seems to do quite well. Okay. But this kind of tool here, a lot of people probably wonder what this is, like when you do this little nonsense like this. Like, what is this tool? Like, what is it doing? It's mimicking the lasso, is what it's doing, right? And so a lot of times you'll do hard shapes or hard edge shapes with a lasso, and then you might fill it with like the fill bucket, right? Well, you don't need that with these. You basically just go to town and cut the shape you need, and that's what you'll get. Now, I don't have any brush smoothing on, so it's a little jumpy, but if I turn a little brush smoothing on with a program called Lazy Nizumi, you'll see that you can actually cut out some pretty clean lines usually. But it does have a little jitter kind of going on with it. So that's not too bad, but that's really good for like rocks and just little different things you might need to make. So, of course, like a little smudge warper thing if you want to use that. Got some textures. This might be like foliage or something like that, right? And then some canvas texture. I like this one a lot because usually you use these on like a new layer. You can use them in black or white or even both. And you create some real natural looking kind of texture patterns on top of your picture, and then you blend it with something like overlay or multiply or soft light, and you can kind of tweak the values here, right? That's a good one to have. So if you ever want to get that more artistic kind of look to your setup, you can do that. So let's go to the layer below it. And so you see we got some more kind of texture patterns. Some of these are really quite good, especially when you start mixing them up with colors. Works out quite nice. Oh, not white, right there. Yeah, so those work out pretty good. Some more splatter stuff going on. Right. What is this one? Oh, this is like a point, not point, impressionist kind of pattern. Krita has one of these by default. Photoshop has some really good ones, but this one's a little softer, I think. So it looks really nice. It creates some nice effects there. You could probably do like water with it if you want to. Probably wouldn't work out too bad, would it? Oops, that's too gray. A little too gray there. Yeah, so you get the idea. You can use that like that. And this is one of my favorites by far, which I don't know if I've set that to my favorites, but it will be now because it's definitely one of my favorites. These kind of like cloudy little brushes like this are just fantastic in my opinion for doing all kinds of texture work. Last but not least, I think this is more like cracks. Like, yeah, well, I guess you could use it for bushes or even like rock surfaces and stuff like that. Probably work out not too bad. And that's another good one, which I think I'll assign to my favorites. All right, so another brush pack that kind of came out was the SK sketching brushes, or sketching pencils, should I say. This one's actually pretty good as well. I think it would be better if you had tilt, if you had a tablet with tilt. I don't, so it doesn't work out too well for me. But they still do feel very natural, like sketchy pencil stuff. So when you zoom out, you remember, you don't want to usually like work at 100%. You want to make a canvas fairly large and kind of zoom out a little bit. And so like using that design template, it's okay, but I like to actually use bigger canvases usually. But you'll see that this is very natural looking kind of pencil stuff, right? It's going to be hard to tell. Like if you took a sketch you did on paper and then scanned it, it would be almost identical to this. It'd look very similar. But with that in mind, it has an eraser as well, which actually I like a lot, this eraser. It has a little bit of texture to it. Snag that. Same with that one too. I like that one. Snag that one too. All right, so I like to just put things in my favorites. I guess I grabbed the right one, did I? Yeah, okay. Got my favorites now. All right. For me, that's the way to go, is to kind of figure out which brushes you like from which packs and just put them in your own my favorites section, right? So now I have all these mixed up with my own. I've modified all the original brushes. So like the airbrush is like a noisy airbrush now. These things, um, you have to kind of get the hang of tweaking the Krita brushes. They have a lot of settings, and sometimes it's overwhelming a little bit, but um, the density controls that noise pattern in it, which is it took me forever to figure that out, that that's what that's doing, but so that you can make a noisy airbrush just by changing the settings there. You can create a new brush, right? A little trick here with this: you can save a new brush preset, and you should be able to clear the thumbnail, and then you see you can make like a little demo of it real quick on what it's doing, and then just save that as a thumbnail. Save that with that thumbnail, anyways. But that's nice, and I've done that for other things. Like I got this like square marker basically with noise. I got a triangle that's more textured. It looks like a pencil. I typically like these little sharp edges it can leave sometimes, and different little angles come out a little bit different. But I had to make a brush tip for that, of course. So you can make your own brush tips and import them. But you tweak all of these. Some of them I haven't touched, like these pencils. There's a regular like hard pencil. This is something like a soft pencil, I guess. I don't know what they call it. What do they call it? A charcoal pencil. I guess they're both charcoal pencils, aren't they? Yeah. And then, but to me, this is more along the lines of a charcoal pencil. This one here, but I guess that's just like the larger one of it. Basically the same thing. And I like sketching with those a lot. And then, of course, we got that blender now, so we can blend things like that, like as if you were just kind of rubbing your fingers across it. That's nice. Or using a paintbrush or something. And then, what else we got in here? Let's see. Got some erasers. My blender is missing in action. A lot of times I unassign my own stuff when I'm not sure if I want to keep it or not. But you can see I got like my own little brushes I've been working on. Some of them are pretty soft, but some are a little too repetitious, That's the square one, which is okay. Triangle. But I made a blender. I was going to show you it. I was using it and I just got rid of it. Some others like soft stuff here. You see, that's one of mine, which I'm probably going to keep that one. I like the pattern for it. It reminds me of like stucco or something. This is, of course, made when I make mine. I scan in brush marks from paper or canvas or whatever. Sometimes I'll edit a photo. I don't know what I did with this one, but I think it was a scan. But that's like a nice wall texture, more or less, right? But yeah, do take time to make your own stuff. Hey, there's my blender. That's it. It's like a square version of it though. I might have changed the tip on it and then abandoned it or something. It's like a little mixer brush blender. Yeah. Yeah, so have fun with the brushes in Krita. I made my own pencil too. I didn't realize I did that. The only reason I haven't made a pack to share is because it's I'm not real sure how to extract which brush ends up being which in the when I save them. I can't tell which one's which or where they're saved or something. I don't know. Otherwise I would have done it by now, but I have tons of I do these little markings like I was saying, I scan them in. You'll see here that if my textures folder, it might be under images actually. Yeah. Under scans. I have like these brush stroke scans. They take a little while to load because they're high resolution, but just little paint dabs and things that I could potentially use in the future. So I got like pencil markings and some papers and stuff. So apparently coins. Yeah. So if you ever want to, you know, sketch on some paper, some crinkled paper or something, put your scanner to use. It's fun. It's awesome being able to. Maybe you want to just act like you're back in school and you're bored in class and you just want to sketch, right? It's fairly realistic. It's not too bad. And of course, if you're working in 3D with Blender or whatever, you can run something like this through Substance Designer, no doubt, and give it some like PBR material kind of looks, most likely. Isolate out these lines, perhaps, and then might be a better way of building it, but yeah, it's like being back in high school right now. Absolutely. So, like, yeah, teach whatever. Drawing. There you go. You could make a love letter or something. I don't know. But the thing is don't think you're stuck in Krita with just default kind of arrangement. You can always customize it and tweak it. But I really like that brush pack, so I wanted to show it to you. And also, if you ever realize you have a ability to open the palette with like settings, dockers, you can do the palette, dock it somewhere. This little icon in the bottom left, look for the concept cookie one. This is a really good color palette in my opinion. It's it's got a nice arrangement of colors in my opinion. It's almost like having your own little color wheel from a paint company or something like that, right? So now you don't have to think about doing color selection quite as much. They've already kind of done the work for you. That comes with Krita. You don't have to do nothing special, right? If you just want to like change colors around, use a couple different presets. You can of course make your own color palettes, which I still haven't exactly figured out how. Maybe I haven't tried, but like the default one here, I have toned paper colors that I've stolen from some websites, art websites and stuff. Color sampled their images, and that's really cool because then you mix that up with the papers, right? Like if you have paper, and so I have like sketch paper, but I have like my mixed media paper, which I think that's the one I like using the most. Might be the copier paper actually. So like load those up, create a layer on top, and then you do a fill with one of those toned papers, and we'll just do a quick fill with whatever color this is. For whatever reason, when I'm recording and I try to do a fill, it doesn't work. Like when it's too large. That's just something that happens, I guess. So let me do add fill layer. I know this will work. You can see I can actually load up the color palette here as well, right? That was the default one. There's all my tone papers, so I can change the colors as needed. Okay, and so we'll use this one. We set it to something like multiply, perhaps. It might change the colors, but we could do overlays as well. Oh, maybe. So we can do this number, try to go around and get it just right. But personally, what I like to do is I'll leave it normal. And this background image, I'm going to unlock it if it is locked. Okay, this is the texture itself. So this background image, I'm going to put it above here. I'm going to go to settings, or excuse me, filters, adjust levels. And this won't update in real time. It tries to, but it's a little slow. But you can take it and like increase the contrast. You see, you start to see that texture pop out a lot more. Click OK. So now what we can do is just overlay this, or multiply this, or subtract, or whatever. We can change the blend modes to whatever we need it to be. And it might be a little bit more accurate this way, especially if you drop the opacity a bit. But now you get the idea with that. So we can use toned paper, right? That's cool. And so when we do that and we go back to those charcoals, we'll go back to my favorites real quick and use like those charcoals. So we just do like black and white if we wanted to, but on a new layer preferably. Maybe lock those two. We don't accidentally sketch on them. Now you're going to have this really satisfying kind of feel of as if you're working traditionally, you know what I'm saying? Like you're actually sketching on paper with charcoals. You can even use lighter colors. Go back the other way with it. So this is a real nice kind of artsy feeling way of doing digital art, in my opinion. Especially if the brushes have a little bit of texture in them as well. And on top of that, you can always do things like multiply this perhaps, right? You can always set blend modes, multiply, overlay, whatever you want. Overlay is kind of a cool one. Just does this number. It's like burning it basically, more or less. So it's like you're using browns now, but you're not, just black and white. Let's see what the other ones might look like. Let's kind of scroll through them, mouse wheel through them. See if we can get something a little bit more different than that. Yeah, so you'll have to play with it and just see what works for you. Soft light, I think, it's one of my favorites, but usually when it comes to like shading, that's kind of fun. We'll leave it at normal for now. You can always just drop the opacity as well, which looks quite nice and makes it look more natural as well. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to share some of these little things out with you. And have fun in Krita. All right. Check you out on the next one. Take care.